Greetings, folks. Nice to see you. My name is Dustin Cormier. Welcome to How to Rock Astrology. Today's episode, we're going to be unfolding the old chestnut of the characteristics of the Nakshatras. Now, there are many ways to classify the Nakshatras. It's a whole confusing thing because there's 27 of the darn things, and you can split that up in so many ways. There's threes, which kind of manifest into the three species kingdoms. That's Dhatu, which is animal. Dhatu is mineral. Jiva is animal. And I'm having a brain fart. And Mula is plant. So that's splitting the Nakshatras up into threes. Essentially, we'll note that the order goes animal, mineral, plant, all the way through. So that's one way you can classify it. They're also split into three groups of 9. You can also split them up into different ways. Now, I've essentially wanted to split them up into at least 3 particular characteristics. And eventually, we're going to get a little bit more into this stuff, possibly, when we get into the work of Camilla Sutton, who's another Vedic astrologer who has given light to the idea of having a tropical astrology concept of these sidereal nakshatras. For now, I'm going to try to succinctly define the nakshatras through 3 characteristics. That's the activity, whether the nakshatra is active, passive, or balanced. That is the nature of the nakshatra, which basically comes down to the classifications that Ernst Wilhelm also talks about in his book, the Nakshatra Sutras. He's probably going to be expounding more about these eventually. I'm excited for that. But as for right now, he doesn't tell us much in his free ebook. Maybe he's got more on the subject that I just haven't read yet. But essentially, these qualities are fixed or permanent, dhruva, the movable or ephemeral nakshatras, the chara nakshatras. It's the sharp or dreadful, it's tiksha. Soft, mild, tender, it's the mrida. Then you've got one that's sharp and soft. You've got fierce or severe, ugra. And then you've got the light nakshatras, laghu, kshipra, both which mean not heavy and swift. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In this classification, they've split the nakshatra into 7 different types. So there's the activity, there's the nature, and then there is the tattva. And as well, I also give thrift to the animal versus plant versus mineral. Although, unfortunately, Svodoba and Hart Fouw do not talk about the animal, plant, mineral classification, which I'm curious about. But Ernst says it's important, and that's why I'm including it. Ernst Wilhelm is very important in my personal research. So that is the nakshatra classifications we're going to get into. And I just want to have a little word before we get into these specific ones. This is coming from Light on Life by Svodoba and Hart Fouw. This is them giving a little short thrift to the nakshatra classifications. What they say is, when a Jyotishi examines a birth chart, most of them commonly examine the nature of the nakshatras occupied by the ascendant, since it's the foundation of the individual's personality, and the moon, since the moon represents the individual's mental and emotional proclivities and tendencies, and also since the moon is the raison d'etre for the nakshatras, the reason for their being. Sometimes they also examine the sun's nakshatra, to inspect the individual's overall spiritual nature. This is something that Camilla Sutton does, and it's very cool and important with regards to romance, as we're going to see when we get there. Many Jyotishis also make predictions from the nature of the nakshatra occupied by a planet which rules a person during a particular period of life in Vimshotri, in the Mahadashas. For example, just to give you a short thrift of that, right now in my life, my internal clock, the big hand has turned to the hour, the Vimshodhari Dasha of Venus. I'm currently in my Venus Mahadasha. And when I was born, Venus was in the nakshatra of Uttara Phalguni. So I have been experiencing very deeply in my life experiences related to the nakshatra of Uttara Phalguni, specifically of Venus in Uttara Phalguni. It's debilitated in Virgo, which is just great, isn't it? But right now I'm so full of love in my life that I'm not skipping a beat in my experience. I guess I got Venus. My Venus has help in other places, so the debilitation isn't too debilitating. But the themes of Uttara Phalguni seem to be in my life in the way of romance in that particular regard. Seems to be, also it's a wealth sign. It's an ambitious sign for different reasons. I digress. So because I'm under the period of Venus, the natal nakshatra of my natal Venus is very important for this period. And that's what he's saying here. I would also contend that the house cusps, the place that the nakshatra that a house cusp is in, the quality and character of that nakshatra might paint a picture of the arena through which we express and manifest the reality of our houses. So that is also something to keep in mind. This is how essentially the bones, again, of the energy field that is our cosmic, our phenomenal, our physical reality are really deeply grounded in the nakshatra qualities that we're about to see here. Now this is a new, well, it's not new, but because of the breakup of sidereal Vedic astrology with tropical Vedic astrology, we're in a new age. Part of the reason I'm doing this work is because we're in an age where we need to be a bit more succinct in discerning with regards to how we interpret the scripture and data and information given from the past, especially because of the weird sort of gestation period that occurred when sidereal astrologers tried to fit the nakshatras to the rashis in order to try to make sidereal rashis, such as the period of time when the vernal equinox of 0 degrees Aries lined up with the sign of Ashwini. Ever since that time, the medieval era has really done a lot of weird things where, for example, we could read that the characteristics of the nakshatra Magha people assume that they're always going to be just like a Leo. But we know now that the sign of Magha is actually pushed into Virgo. So you can be born with a planet at 1, 2, 3, or 4 degrees of Virgo, at least according to Victakara. Again, these exact nakshatra delineations are still under debate. But according to Victakara, you can have a planet at 1, 2, 3 degrees Virgo, and it will be in the sign of Magha, which will give that Magha, that planetary reading of that planet in Magha, a way less Leo reading, right? So, if any of these classifications necessarily pinned Magha to Leo, this is what we're doing right now, is we're trying to digest what are the true character qualities of these nakshatras. Now, I've still got it in good faith that most of these qualities stand alone and have their own truths and have their own important truths. But I digress for now. What we're going to try to do is hack into what I see as these main three or main four classifications, right? The activity, the nature, the tattva, the element, and the plant, animal, mineral classification. I've taken most of these, particularly because Ernst Wilhelm considers them important, but also because Svodoba has given us some useful information on a few of them. So that is my intro to our nakshatra classifications. Check out the next episode. We're going to talk about the activity of the nakshatras. Thanks for watching, folks.